You are looking at a live view of the Falcon 9 as it awaits its 9:19 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. Good evening. It is January 6th here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Lauren Lyons, and I'm an engineer on the Starlink team here at SpaceX, and welcome to the first SpaceX launch of 2020. Now, as many of you know, we just launched 60 Starlink satellites back in November, and today we'll be launching another 60. That, combined with the additional 60 we launched back in May, bring our total count of Starlink satellites launched to over 180. With Starlink, SpaceX plans to bring high-speed, low-latency broadband internet to people across the globe, particularly to places where connectivity has been unreliable, too expensive, or even completely unavailable. Our goal is to start offering service in the northern United States and Canada later this year, expanding to a near-global constellation after another 22 launches. And of course, the more launches we have, the more opportunities we have to reuse these boosters. In fact, this one will be entering its fourth flight, the one that you see right there on the pad. This first stage first flew the Telstar 18 Vantage mission in September 2018, followed by the Iridium 8 mission in January 2019, and most recently, our first launch of 60 Starlink satellites back in May 2019. We're going to be attempting to recover this Falcon 9 first stage for the fourth time on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed about 339 nautical miles off the east coast of Florida. We will also be attempting to recover a payload fairing, a payload fairing half using one of our fairing recovery vessels, Miss Tree. We're continuing countdown to liftoff right now, but if for some reason we have to call hold on today's launch, we'll have a backup opportunity tomorrow, January 7th at 8:57 p.m. Eastern. But at this time, all systems are go for an on-time liftoff.
My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX. Right now, we're looking at a live view of Falcon 9, our 70-meter, two-stage, liquid-fueled launch vehicle. Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the payload and went vertical early this morning. The chief engineer held a technical pull at T-1 hour, and launch director held a propellant load and launch go-no-go pull at T-38 minutes. Falcon 9 has been loading propellant since T-35 minutes, and currently our rocket-grade kerosene, or what we call RP-1, is nearly fully loaded on the first stage, which is the bottom two-thirds of the vehicle that you see there on the screen. The first stage is responsible for accelerating the vehicle through Earth's atmosphere to the edge of space with the help of 9 Merlin engines. Above that first stage is the second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, which ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is what will carry the Starlink satellites to an altitude of 290 kilometers above the Earth's surface. At this time, the second stage is fully loaded with fuel, and liquid oxygen is currently loading on both stages. The stack of 60 satellites is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which is the pointed enclosure on the very top of the rocket, and you can see that right there on your screen. Once we reach the vacuum of space, we will deploy the fairing as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. As for weather, looks like we have some mostly clear skies with some light winds, overall looking good for an on-time launch today in Cape Canaveral. But we will continue to monitor this all the way down to T-0 to ensure that weather remains good for launch. The Air Force range is prepared to support today's mission. Waters are clear of any ships, and the range continues to ensure the safety of our launch. With that, the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now.
Now, if you've been following Starlink's development, you might know that most satellite internet services today come from geostationary satellites. These are single satellites that orbit the planet at about 35,000 kilometers, covering a fixed region above the Earth. Starlink, on the other hand, is a constellation of multiple satellites that orbit the planet at a much lower altitude, at about 550 kilometers, and they cover the entire globe. And because they're in a low orbit, the round-trip data time between the user and the satellite, also known as latency, is much lower than with satellites in geostationary orbit. This enables Starlink to deliver services like online gaming that are usually not possible on other satellite broadband systems. Now, after the Starlink satellites are deployed from Falcon 9 at 290 kilometers above the Earth, they'll use their onboard ion thrusters to raise themselves to their operational altitude of 550 kilometers. As you may recall, these ion thrusters are powered by krypton, making Starlink the first krypton propelled spacecraft ever flown. Now, during orbit raise, the satellites are closely clustered together, and their solar arrays are positioned in a special low-drag configuration, making the satellites appear visible from the ground just after deployment. However, once the satellites reach their operational altitude and begin on-station service, their orientation changes, and the satellites become significantly less visible. While it's really cool to catch a glimpse of those satellites from the ground, they can sometimes be a distraction for astronomers. So on this flight, Starlink is testing an experimental darkening treatment on one satellite in order to further reduce the light reflection on the satellites. We also make early satellite tracking data available to astronomers so they can better coordinate their observations with our satellites. These measures, along with our work with leading astronomy groups, will enable SpaceX to bring internet access to underserved and unserved populations around the world without materially impacting views of the night sky.
We are currently about 5.5 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. At T-minus 7 minutes, engine chill began. This is where we allow a small amount of the super chilled liquid oxygen to flow into the Merlin engine turbo pumps prior to the full flow of liquid oxygen into the vehicle to avoid any shocks to the system. Liquid oxygen is also what is creating the white puffs around Falcon 9. We continue to load super chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, into the stage until just before liftoff. And when that super chilled liquid oxygen comes into contact with the ambient air around it, it creates the clouds that you will see around the vehicle on your screen right there. And just a few moments ago, or coming up in about 15 seconds actually, at T-minus 4.5 minutes, the transport erector will retract away from the rocket slightly and provide some clearance of Falcon 9 for liftoff. You should be able to see that on your screen. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. First stage should finish prop loading at T-minus 3 minutes and second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. At T-minus 60 seconds, be sure to listen in for the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. The Starlink payloads continue to be healthy. The Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is looking good. The range is green for launch. So let's listen in to the last few minutes of the countdown.
Stage 1 launch loads closed down. Stage 2 LOX loads closed down. And vehicles on the internal power. Falcon 9 is in startup.
Go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff. Go Starlink to the Falcon, Space Force inaugural launch.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
We are T plus
Power
45
telemetry
seconds
nominal.
into liftoff, and we have just had liftoff of our Falcon 9 vehicle carrying our Starlink payload. In just about 15 seconds from now, we will be passing through max Q. This is the largest
Vehicle is
aerodynamic
supersonic.
pressure that the vehicle will see throughout ascent. And we've got an awesome view of liftoff right now.
Vehicle is passing through maximum dynamic pressure.
And we just heard that call out for passing through max Q. Now coming up in about a minute will be a rapid succession of events, main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO, followed immediately by stage separation and SES-1, which is second engine start. Now MECO is where we shut down that main engine on the first stage booster to allow the vehicle to slow down just enough to separate
And back
from
engine
second
fill.
stage. If you're just now joining us, we have an awesome onboard view of our vehicle, Falcon 9. And in about 30 seconds will be those three events: MECO, main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES-1. And there is MECO, as you saw those engines shut down.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there is stage separation and second engine start. You can see that second engine on your right screen glowing bright red. Now in about 20 seconds we will have fairing deploy. And we should be able to see this on our screen as well. And on that left screen there, you can see the grid fins. It's a bit dark on the East Coast right now, so hard to see, but we did see those grid fins deploy.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there is fairing deploy. So as Lauren mentioned earlier, we will be attempting to catch one of the fairing halves on our recovery vessel, Miss Tree, but we will not be able to show this live, so check in with our social media for updates.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
That is beautiful. Now, there are a series of events coming up with both Stage 1 and Stage 2 before we reach our parking orbit and enter that first coast phase. The first is the Stage 1 entry burn. That is when Stage 1 is re-entering the Earth's upper atmosphere. It will reignite 3 of its Merlin 1D engines in order to slow the vehicle down as it re-enters so that it doesn't break apart because we want to land it. That burn's going to last for just under 20 seconds or so, and at that point, the burn will end. You'll hear the call-out entry burn shut down. A couple minutes after that, we will see our Stage 1 landing burn. That is where we will reignite one engine, E9. It's that one right in the middle, and it's going to burn for just over 20 seconds and hopefully leave Stage 1 standing up nice and tall on that drone ship. But at the very
Second
same
stage on
time,
nominal trajectory.
as you just heard, second stage is on a nominal trajectory. That's really good news. And speaking of second stage, right as the drone ship lands, you should hear the call out for SECO 1. That's where we shut down the second stage engine to enter that coast phase. So far, Stage 2's trajectory continues to be nominal. Stage 1 has also drifted up to its highest altitude and is now beginning its descent. That's that image over to the left. It's dark outside. Oh, dark in space. Right, in about 10 seconds, you should see that entry burn start on your
Stage
left
1
side.
FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
All right.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And we just had a good shutdown of that entry burn. Meanwhile, the second stage continues at full power with over 200,000 pounds of thrust.
Stage 2 following nominal trajectory.
All right, looks like we lost signal, but that's fine. We should be acquiring it again soon. Now, Stage 2 continues to burn, taking those Starlink satellites to their first parking orbit. Stage 1 is coasting down, steering its way using those grid fins down to the drone ship. At about T plus 8 minutes and 3 seconds, right around there, you're going to see that landing burn start.
Stage 1 entry transonic.
Oh, and as you just heard, we've just gone transonic on Stage 1 as it's making its way back down to the drone ship. So the atmosphere is actually what's slowing the vehicle down, Stage 1, as it's now re-entering the Earth's atmosphere and coming down to the thicker parts. That's what slows the vehicle down.
Stage 1 landing burn startup.
All right. You can see that light on the left. Stage 1
Stage 2
making
is
its
under
way.
terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing light
All right.
deploy.
And yes, we have another landing. This is the 4th landing of this vehicle and the 48th Falcon 9 first stage landing to date. It was awesome. We got video the whole time. That was cool. All right, Stage 2 is
Stage
still
2
doing work.
FTS is saved.
SECO should be coming up any moment.
SECO.
And we may have lost video, but we've heard confirmation of Zico.
Cape LOS expected.
And let's listen to see if we're in a good
GNC
orbit.
confirms good insertion accuracy.
All right, and GNC has confirmed good orbital insertion. Now with that, we're about to enter a coast phase, so we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be leaving you with this cool animation that lets you visualize where Falcon and the Starlink satellites are on orbit. We'll be back at about T plus 44 minutes for a second stage relay, followed by another coast
Newfoundland
period, and
acquisition
then
of signal.
deployment of the Starlink 60 satellites.
Bermuda lost signal expected.
Loss of signal expected Newfoundland. Goon Hilly acquisition. Loss of signal Goon Hilly expected. brief acquisition.
Welcome back to the webcast for Starlink. So far, we've had a on-time liftoff of our Falcon 9 vehicle. Our first stage made its way back and landed for its fourth time on, of course, I Still Love You. And second stage is on its nominal trajectory right now. Coming up next, we have SES-2, followed immediately by SECO-2, which is second engine cutoff. Now, this will be one of the shortest burns of the Merlin vacuum engine that we do. The burn is short because we don't need a big adjustment in the orbit, but a little bit will go a long way here. Now, that's coming up here in about 30 seconds. And we've got a live view of the second stage engine there, and we're only burning for just 1 second, so it may not look like much, but it will be lasting 1 second. And there was our quick SES-2 followed by SECO-2. Now we're just waiting to confirm good orbit.
GNC confirms good insertion accuracy.
And we just got that call out for good orbit. So now that we are in good orbit, we'll be coasting for the next 15 minutes or so. So we'll be back around T plus 1 hour and 1 minute for payload deploy.
Ops, loss of signal expected. Acquisition of signal, Tasmania.
Welcome back to the webcast for Starlink. We are getting ready for payload deploy. Now, the 60 Starlink satellites are flatly stacked on top of Falcon 9 for efficiency, so all 60 satellites are going to be released all at once. It's going to look a bit different from other separation sequences you've seen, aside from Starlink, of course. But once released from Falcon 9, the satellites will slowly disperse. They might even bump into each other, which is totally okay. They were designed with this in mind. We are currently less than a minute away from deployment, so let's wait till we get that acquisition of signal and watch it live.
Tension rods released and payload deploy confirmed.
All right, you just heard the call out. Let's wait till we get that video again. There we go. That's all 60 of those Starlink satellites on their merry way. It's a beautiful sight. Just to give you guys an update on the fairing, we didn't catch it this time. We got really close, but we're going to keep on trying again and give you more updates as that continues. And with that, that brings our web class to a close. Thank you to the 45th Space Wing for range safety today, to the FAA for licensing today's launch, and a thank you to the FCC for licensing operation of these satellites.
We'd also like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. Follow our website and social media platforms for updates on our next missions and milestones. Thanks for joining us for the first launch of 2020. And until next time, have a Happy New Year.